The views and opinions expressed on the Craig L. Hayes Show do not necessarily reflect those of Westgate's Resort, ownership, or management. And now, on with the show.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Get your copies while they last. Stop the presses.
And now for something completely different.
Are you ready for a little truth? Are we not entertained? Wisdom is the proper use of knowledge and experience. There are no safe spaces here. The truth shall make you free. It's showtime! So you want the truth, but can you handle the truth? Well, here's another fine mess you've gotten us into. Now that's entertainment. Enlighten me a little. What you say is quite logical. And what did we learn? Prepare yourself for a little sensory overload. I came here for the truth. 7 years ago. Stand by the roll show intro. Roll show intro in 3, 2, 1, go.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
Hello, America, family, friends, and listeners all around this planet we call home. This is the Craig L. Hayes Show. I am Craig L. Hayes. This is the 17th of December, 2024, and once again we are broadcasting, or I should say recording, from the Westgate Resort here in Las Vegas at the International Showroom in Elvis Presley's former dressing room. And we're continuing our series on entertainers and people who work behind the scenes and getting a feel for what it takes to put a show on here in Las Vegas. And the privilege of doing it here in Elvis Presley's former dressing room is immense in my book. And I want to thank the president of the hotel again, Cammie Christensen, and Dawn Rawl. She is the vice president of entertainment and marketing, and John Peer, the entertainment director and technical director for the hotel, for allowing me to come in here and do this podcast in such a historical event and talk about the history of show business in Las Vegas, all around this city. Today, we're going to be talking to a friend of mine that we were just discussing it, and I've known him for 50 years, if not more. And that's pretty impressive, being that I'm only like 25 years old, that I know him that well. But his name is Rick Keller. Rick, welcome to the show.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, that 50-year thing at least just blows my mind that, I've known some people for 50 years like that.
Well, we are getting older.
We are getting older, and I know you're retired. I just retired, 5 months ago, and I'm enjoying the fruits of all that labor we put in. And what we're going to talk about is a little bit about your history. We'll go and start when you're a youngster, where you came from, where you're born, and some of the stuff you were into in high school, etc. And then obviously the question I'm going to ask you is going to be, how did you get into show business? And I already know the answer because I know your dad. So
Yeah.
and my dad, so it's pretty much going to be an obvious where we're going with all of this stuff. So but anyhow, if you would just go ahead and just tell us a little bit about you, a little mini biography on your autobiography or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
And tell us about it, and then we'll move on and start talking shop.
Well, my parents moved here in 1955 through the Air Force. And so I was born here. And my dad, he started off, like I say, in the Air Force, but him and another airman were working a gas station overnight for all the people that were going to the test site. And those people would have to leave Vegas like 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning to drive out there. And they started in on telling them, wow, this is what we make money-wise, and they're looking for people. So he into the Air Force and had to go get, he was in radio, so he had to go get a ham license, which you had to get in LA. And he went to the test site and worked there in radio for about 3 years, 4 years. But it was a very dangerous place to go to. The road was a 2-lane road, and people were dying weekly on that road from head-ons and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And he found out then that they needed technicians for the Strip, for shows, or for just sound man during the daytime, audio. So he started to get a job, and that was at the Sahara, I think is where he started. Joined the union, and he was a sound man over there in the daytime mostly, until they started building convention halls, and he did a lot of that, and then he moved into the showroom. And he was very good at it. He figured out how to put sound back on the stage without the problems of feedback and stuff like that. And so when the acts showed up, they loved it because they could hear themselves. And for a lot of them, it was the first time they could really hear themselves. And he did it with horns, mainly for the singers. So it was, I think the horns were like 30, 35 feet out, hung on the ceiling. And you went on that stage and you took a microphone and yelled into it, it'd knock you over. Because horns can really put out.
Oh, yeah.
And then he had some bass speakers. And then he had mid-range speakers, those old Shure speakers. I don't know if you remember them rectangle ones.
Are you talking like the columns?
Yeah, the old column stuff.
Yeah, I know which ones you're talking. Yeah,
The old gray ones.
the Shure Master or whatever they were
Yeah.
called or something like that. Yeah,
But what that was
Vocal Master.
Vocal Master.
That's what they
yeah.
were. Vocal Master.
And they were mid-range. And so when you got a comedian where it's not high-pitched stuff, they could hear themselves too. So he was pretty successful. And because of the acts there and like Jerry Lewis, he ended up doing the telethon, and that was a pretty big deal doing that. And he had full control of it, and that was because of the acts. And that was a good thing of the acts in the old days. If you could do your job, you know, you were in, and nobody messed with you really. So that was a good thing. So that's how I ended up getting in out of high school. I learned how to run fall spotlight. In those days, they were all carbon arcs. So not only did you have to run the light as far as what it looked like down on the stage, you had to manage the carbons and that kind of stuff, which was all fun. But yeah, that's how I did it. And they would make you do that for more than a month, where you'd come in and for free. And you'd, when they'd get you practicing first. So you'd practice before the show sometimes, or usually not so much then, but between shows, you'd run it for an hour till your hands got so tired. So they'd make you practice for a week between shows, and then they, if it was a comedian, they'd let you on it.
Now, were you doing this at the Sahara?
This was at the Sahara, yeah.
So your dad's first call, and did he stay there that whole time? You know, because
No,
I'm glad you're talking about your dad, because your dad was one of my mentors as far as in the audio world, and I'm glad you're talking about that. But was he there all the time?
nope.
Okay.
He left with, at that time, Milton Perel on the hotel. And bless you, Milton Perel left the Sahara, sold it to maybe Del Webb, I'm not sure, but Milton Perel went down and built the Aladdin. And he took a lot of the stagehands with him for the showroom down there and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then later he came back to the Sahara, probably when they built the convention hall.
I was about to say, because if your dad, his first call was at Sahara and he stayed there that whole time, that would have been
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
can't remember when he went back, but they went back, and I'm not real sure, but when they built the Space Center, that was like the first convention hall in any hotel in the United States.
The Space Center.
And that's
Yeah.
where your dad worked too, I believe.
Yeah, and that place was the largest private-owned convention space. I looked it up when I was talking about that. I think it's in the book that I just gave you there.
Oh, cool.
And it was 40,000 square feet or something. It wasn't big, but it was the biggest private-owned. Because the convention center was just down the street, but that's owned by the county.
Yeah.
It was like 40,000 square feet. Now, Mandalay Bay what does Mandalay Bay have? 2 million square feet over there or something like that. Unbelievable. It's just.
Right. But at the time, it was big,
It was.
and they did a lot of big stuff in there. And then he ended up going into the showroom guy, whatever happened there, I don't know. But he was in there working when I came over to learn how to run a light. And once you got to where you could do it, then you would, they'd let the people know. And you'd go up, sign in to be a B-lister. And that's all they had is A-list, B-list in those days. And you would get a call. And my first call, I didn't figure this out really until about 5 years ago, how this first call happened. But I get a call from the union dispatch. It's I'm going to say like 7:15, 7:20, somewhere in there. Get to Caesar's Palace to be a spot operator and get there as soon as you can, because they have a problem, they're missing a guy or whatever. So get there as fast as you can. It may even been around 7:30, which was call time.
Yeah.
So, because every show was 8 and midnight in those days.
Yeah.
So I jump in my car, drive down there, race down there, because this is important. Get there and find my way into the hotel, into the backstage area. And I get there, nothing. Nothing's going on. It's quiet. There's one security guard back there. In the old days, all the showrooms had a security guard backstage. And it seemed like to me. So nothing going on. And the guy goes, "Hey, what are you here for?" And I go, "Well, I'm supposed to run a light in the show." He goes, "Oh, the show's been canceled. I'll take you up and show you where the office is for the head carpenter." So I go up there, and the guy pats me on the back. "Oh, I'm glad you showed up. You're going to get paid 2 shows tonight. And, but you'll be here tomorrow at 7:30 and probably work the whole week." So it's like, okay, great.
Who was the show? Do you remember?
Yep. The show was Andy Williams, featuring the Lennon sisters, and Jay Leno as the opening act. So, and I was so hyped up. Man, I got to get there. I got to do it. And then, boom. No, there's no show tonight. It's been canceled. So the next night I get in there, and you're nervous. It's your first time. And they had 5 spotlights that run on that show, 3 in the booth, which were Super Troopers, and 2 side spots, which were Troopers, which I ran. Now, Super Trooper, it was a different animal. Different carbons. They were DC lights, so they had a positive, negative carbon, 2 different size carbons. And then, but Troopers were just the same. They were AC, so they were the same carbons. So, so anyway, so I could run a Trooper. So they put me on spot 4, I believe it was. And it was the better of the 2 lights. And I think it was Brian Lee. And he ran the other light, which was a tougher light, which I didn't find out till like 3 weeks later. So they put me on this light. So I go up there and trim it, and then he shows me, "Okay, Rick, here's your first cue. So count the drape 3 over, and right just underneath that, cheat in right there, and just lower your light a bit, and there's going to be the number 4 girl on the swing. There's going to be 4 girls on a swing.
Okay.
And they're going to be 15 foot off the deck. And you're looking at it. You got no idea what you're going to see.
Oh, yeah.
But he showed me where to cheat in. I was ready to go. And so I trimmed the light, get it running good. You had to trim them and then shut them off. And come down, and I'm standing at the bottom of the ladder, and the door opens, and this big guy comes out. He goes, "Hey." I go, "Hey." And he goes, "My name's Jay." I go, "Okay, my name's Rick." And he goes, what are you doing here? I go, I'm running a spotlight. And it's up there. He goes, oh, okay. And I go, but it's my first show. And he goes, oh, this is my first show in Vegas too. It was Jay Leno. And so we talked for 10 minutes, and he was a little worried, concerned, because that room, that was Circus Maximus. And I think that probably, well, in those days, capacity seating. So they could easily put 1,200 and probably
Oh, yeah.
seen 1,800. It's just whoever showed up for the show got in.
Yeah, they packed you in like sardines back then. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so he was concerned with the amount of crowd. He never worked anything like that. And I told him, oh, forget about that. Those lights out front are so bright that you're not going to see anybody. You might see the people right in front of you. I said, so just play to them, what the heck? Like I knew what I was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
After 6 weeks of practicing or learning how to run a light. But I've stood in the spotlights,
Yeah.
and so you can't see nothing really. And you have a tendency to look at it. And once you do that, you're really blind.
Yep.
So that was quite fun. And sure enough, curtain went up when they got to that part after Jay did his 10, 12 minutes and faded in. Sure enough, there's the girl right there. And they called you through the show. And it was fun. And Andy Williams was fantastic.
Isn't he he is just so good.
Yeah, all the songs sound like they did on the records.
Yeah.
And there was one cue, though, that I was like, oh, God, what was that? They called spot 1 to be a 5 moon. And I thought, oh, my God, I hope they don't call that to me.
I don't even know what that is.
I did.
I've heard a lot, but a 5 moon?
I pondered that and finally got the nerve to ask another spot operator, what the heck's a 5 moon? Because I was afraid they're going to call me. The guy started laughing. He goes, oh, spot 1 put in frame 5, and he shot past the mirror ball, partway into the mirror ball, to make a moon on the cyc.
Oh, gotcha.
And but I couldn't see it from my elevation because I was looking down. You could barely see the band, but you couldn't see the
Yeah,
cyc.
those side spots were pretty interesting. I never ran a side spot. I was up there, but I did run some spots up there for Beach Boys and other things from the front. That was fun. And,
Yeah, it was good. I ended up staying there. What it was, I got there just, I think, around summertime, and everybody was taking vacations. And once you could run the light and they figured that out, they would use you. So I ran that light. The next show was Tom Jones. Totally different thing. Oh, my God. So I can't remember who the opening act was. It probably was a comedian, which you wouldn't run. The main spotlights would follow him. But for Tom Jones, I was shocked. I'm like 18 years old, and the girls jump up on their chairs and take their panties off and throw them up to them, and their keys. And so I come down that ladder after the show, and man, the security, they'd have not one security guard backstage, they'd have 10. And they're wrestling with the girls who were trying to get back there, and they're on the ground. And their dresses up, and they had no panties on. It's like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? But it was funny.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to run with that stuff and just go, okay, I've got to see what's going on. This is
Yeah.
beyond anything I could imagine. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then so I think the next week, they put me on the other light. And I believe, God, might have been Paul Anka. And the yellow light was really jacked up. It had, they had these little things called dogs, and they fit into the worm gear. You had worm gears that slowly kept the carriage moving in. So as you burn the carbons stay close to where they're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Now, with a trooper, they never did stay where they're supposed to be usually. So you always had to reach back and adjust it. And you could tell by the color of your light,
Yep.
What's going on with it. So if they got too close, they'd pencil. One of them would pencil, and then a tip would pop off, and now the light, immediately the arc would go out.
Yep.
And once you restruck them, now you're not center anymore. So you have to run your knurl knob to get the whole carriage back to the center part of the light. So that light over there had two bad dogs in it, but one really bad one. And if you leaned it down, it would sometimes get jammed and pop to the next section of the worm gear. And all of a sudden your carbons immediately were almost touching or touch.
Yeah.
And so that light was a whole hard thing to handle. Plus it had a metal reflector in it, so it didn't put any light out. So after that first two shows, I was like, God damn. The second show, I reached in and figured out, looking at the carbons, because you would have to trim during the show, which one was longer, which one was shorter. So whichever one it was on that light, I think the front carbon, I'd cut an 1/8 inch off it or 3/4 of an inch, so that when I started, I was on the very edge of the travel. But as it burnt through the show, it would get itself to where you were in the middle of the travel for the carriages. So,
Okay.
and so that was the first thing. Like the second show was like, because I was hearing for the first 3 weeks, like, man, I got to go out and trim. Spot 5's got to trim, fix the trim. And what they were doing is opening the light up and reaching in there and crushing one of the carbons to make it so you got yourself back into center. Because once you got off center, the light would go brown, because the arc had to be perfectly centered in that reflector to shoot down there. So I figured that out, and Ron Michelle was the head electric at Sahara, and he was a great guy. So I called him and told him what was going on. He says, okay, Rick, it's the dogs. He says, come over to the Sahara, and I'll give you the little tool you need, which was just an Allen wrench, and I'll give you a couple. We got used dogs that are pretty good. So he gave me two used dogs. They were like a pin. And so I got back to Caesars early and loosened it, pulled the dog out, and it was just a cylinder device, and pulled that out, and it was shaved down so bad. So I put the new one in, pushed it all the way in, tightened it up, and I oiled it, brought some oil, oiled the thing up, and that ended the problem with that light, running out of travel and stuff. Because now the dog would stay in the worm gear perfectly where it was set. So I changed those out and got that working, but it still didn't put no light out. So I went down, and the Stewart guy's name was Carl Bevy, I think. And I go, Carl, do we have any Bonami? He goes, we might have something like that. Let me look and see. And they found some up in the booth. And I said, I'm going to go clean that reflector. So I get up there, and it was a metal reflector. But metal, you can still polish it. So I sat there between shows and polished that thing and put it back in the light, and then turned the light on and focused it. And it was funny because some other guys had a shit fit that, who's working on Spot 5? They should get paid for that, and blah, 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 blah. So that was kind of a big issue right before the show. Some people were complaining. And him as the steward just told him, hey, shut your mouth, trying to fix the damn light, because they've been having all kinds of trouble with that light. And the show started, and I'm pretty sure it was Paul Anka, because the first words out of Paul Anka's light man's mouth was, wow, what happened to Spot 5? We got some light out of Spot 5, and that ended the argument right there.
There you go. It was kind of funny being the young guy on the crowd and the new guy per se, and all these other guys couldn't go and fix the light. Caesar's Palace didn't have a budget to go get
Whatever,
get the parts so it could be fixed or something.
Yeah.
But that's not uncommon. A lot of times these places won't fix stuff like that, and it's like, but the fix is pretty cheap. Yeah.
I had a good run there, but they had a pretty set crew. And like I said, everybody was taking vacations and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it was like 2 weeks later, they said, we got to take you up and teach you how to trim a Super Trooper. So it's like, okay. So that was Brian Lee again. So I go up, and he teaches me how to trim it and all the little tricks on them. And once you got those things in tune, and those lights were, I mean, if you went into any light booth in this town, those lights were so balanced that they were easy to run. If you let go of it, it would fall back into center, up and down wise.
Yeah.
I mean, you balanced them by taping a box on the back and loading carbons in it till you got it that perfect. So anyway, so they take me up there, teach me how to do that, and they say, okay, you're gonna be center spot for Ann Margaret. It's like, oh, man. But they're pretty sure I could do it. So the hardest part of that was keeping the trim right, but those lights were so in tune that once you got them running and you learned how to stretch, it was called stretching then, it would just run right. They had speed controls on them. I didn't have to touch them. Those guys had them so dialed in, and they were marked in the back, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And, but it was pretty fun. Well, she had lasers. She was probably one of the first show to have lasers.
Wow.
Yeah. And right underneath the spotlight was a mirror for the lasers. And boy, those things were so beautiful. So, but they had, those lasers, you had to have water.
Oh, yeah. Those early ones had to be water cooled. So.
Yeah, which was a garden hose.
Yeah, garden hose and dumping into a sink.
Yeah, so
That's all they were. So.
yeah, that's exactly what it was. So since I was the smallest guy and the youngest guy, the lasers were set upstage center, and that was about 35 feet on that Caesar stage from where there was a opening in the floor, and about 10 feet away from there was a sink. So
That's what it was.
guess who got to crawl down underneath the
Take care of
stage?
that. Yep. So we're going to pause right here. That's the end of the first one. We've already done one episode, believe it or not. Just
Wow.
talking that. They go quick, man. I'm telling you. That's the fun part about this stuff. And we'll be back in just a couple minutes. We'll continue on episode 2 with Rick Keller. Until then, Talbot, take it.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
Perfect. I'm going to use it on the head real quick.
Okay.
Right back and get a drink of water, and we'll
Yeah.
continue on.
Yeah.
Type in your name and episode 1.